Welcome back to the trail with Mushy the Cowboy Cook. We're getting deeper into fall. It's apple picking season. Lots of fresh apples out there. So why not do an apple fritter using fresh apples? Let's get into the video and let's start cooking. Alright, I've got my pan heated up. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of butter. I always use unsalted. I mean, this recipe calls for a little bit of salt. And then I peeled and diced 4 Granny Smith apples. You need 2 or 3 depending on how big they are. And what I did, you can use a little bit of lemon juice to keep it from turning brown while you're getting everything ready. What I did, I had some apple cider and I just poured some of that in a bowl and put the apples in there. And hopefully, and I believe it will, give it a little extra punch of flavor, and as well as a little extra cinnamon and whatever else they put into the apple cider. Now, I have bought it freshly squeezed, which I prefer, but this just came from a store, and I have a feeling they may have a little bit of cinnamon. It at least smells like it. But anyhow, you want to cook your apples for about 10 minutes. Get them a little crisp and soften them up a little bit. And the reason why you want to cook them is if you don't, your fritters, it's not going to have time enough when you're cooking your fritter to really soften up the apple. Because you're only cooking your fritters, 4 or 5 minutes total, maybe 6. And you're going to end up with more raw apple than a cooked apple. So just cook them up, like I said, for about 10 minutes. We also going to add 2 tablespoons of white sugar, tablespoon of cinnamon. Mix that up real good with it. Start building up the flavor. And then when I take it off, after about 10 minutes, I will throw in 1 teaspoon of vanilla and stir that up real good. And who knows, I may add a little crown. You got it on hand, why not? So we'll come back, and after the apples are cooked, we are going to let them cool, and then as they're cooling, we'll get the dough mixed together and get that started. So we'll be right back. Alright, I hope in the last section once I get going, it's hard to go back and check, but I hope in this first section I said 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And but the recipe will be down in the description. Alright, now for the dough part, I've got 1 2/3 cup self-rising flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a pinch of nutmeg. And now that's my dry ingredients. The wet is 1/2 cup of milk, 2 eggs beaten, and 2 tablespoons of vanilla. So mix all that together, the wet and the dry. As you see, like I told you on the video making the chickarron fried chicken, I've got my racks with paper towels underneath. so that the oil can drain off. I also have 2 tablespoons of butter that I have melted and let cool off. So we'll add that. And then I'll let my apples cool. When I took it off the heat, like I said, I put 1 tablespoon of vanilla and about 2 tablespoons of Crown, because that's what I had. As you can see, they got a little brown. Well, they're soft, but they're also a little crisp. You can see the cinnamon and the vanilla mixed in. And just fold all this together. Probably could have gotten by with 2 apples, but I had 4 left over that I wanted to put into some recipe. And why not this one? This would be full of apples. Once again, you can always put some raisins. Some pecans would be good in it. Walnuts. Just kind of doctor it up. Now these going to cook just a couple minutes on either side. I've got the whole oil heated up to about 350. So let me get them going. And when we come back, I'll have them ready and cooling, and we'll make the glaze for it. Alright, I cooked them all up. I got 12 of them. They're about the size of an apple pie. Let's do the icing. Now for the icing, I've got 2 cups of powdered sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, I've got 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 cup of milk. I'm going to put in a little bit at a time. And just stir it real good. Give it just a couple minutes and it'll come together. It's amazing how much this powdered sugar will really take to the milk. But just keep at it. And you got time because you want your fritters to cool off. Otherwise, I mean, you can put it on when they're hot. But what's going to happen is that hot fritter is just going to melt all this sugar and it's going to run. And whereas this is a little more of a glaze, I mean, a little more of a frosting than a glaze, but you can put it right on the hot ones. This first batch has cooled off a fair amount. I think we're going to be alright once we get to it. We might need a little more milk. And that brings up a good point, kind of a pro tip. Remember, we're outside. We're in the elements. Wind is blowing. Wind will dry out things. Wind can also have an effect on your fire. the humidity outside will have an effect on your fire too. Oh yeah, that looks good. Like I said, just perfect amount. Keep stirring it real good. Try and get the clumps out best you can. But just keep working at it. Like I said, you want these fritters to cool off if you want it to, this frosting, or to kind of sit up on the fritter. Now I'm going to cut one in half. Oh, nice. A lot of cinnamon. But I don't mind that. Kind of drizzle it. You could take a kind of a paintbrush and paint some of it on. Hey, that's good enough for me. Finger looking good. Now when you put the glaze on this / frosting on it, just let it sit there and it will tighten up and be ready for you to pack up. In fact, I've got half for my mother, half of one, and then the rest of them I'm going to take them to some special friends of mine tomorrow morning, and they can enjoy it with their morning coffee. But try it inside. Like I said, the apples, just cook them on a medium heat for about 10 minutes. Once you got the batter going, 4 or 5 minutes on each side. Make sure the oil returns back to the temperature. In fact, that's something, it's a little more difficult deep frying outside on wood, because for one, you got to continuously feed the fire, and it's a little harder when you're by yourself. But you just got to balance things. Don't rush it. Don't get a roaring blaze, because you will set that oil on fire if you start spilling it. So take your time. It's it's cooking oil. It's hot oil, so you want to be careful whether you're inside or out. But outside, you know how that temperature of the oil will drop. You know, once you put something in, that's why you got to keep feeding your fire. But give it a try. You will enjoy it. Well, I hope you liked that video on apple fritters. Pretty simple process. A couple of steps in it. You can crank them out have a nice dessert with the fresh fruit, even though it's fried and whatnot, but lots of sugar and cinnamon, all the goodness you want in the fall. But just give it a try. And want to remind you, I am an Amazon affiliate, so there's a link in the description down below. Go through it. Once you get to the site, buy whatever you normally buy. Shopping for Christmas, just buying your everyday things, and I will make a little commission off of it. Doesn't cost you anything. It just helps the channel out financially. If you like videos like this, please subscribe if you haven't already. Share it with a friend. Ask them to subscribe. Like it. And as always, ring the bell and Mushy the Cowboy Cook. We'll see you down the trail.